Oh, hi, everybody. Welcome to this webinar series. So this webinar series is focusing on autistic girls and teens. My name is Stephanie Moser, and I am a social worker located in Peterborough, Ontario. My pronouns that I use are she and her. A little bit about language that I like to talk about at the beginning. So I'm going to, this is geared towards autistic girls and teens. Due to the nature of some of the slides that will be coming up more in session 2, I also want to acknowledge that there may be some trans boys and trans teens where the information is relevant. So I just want to be inclusive and make sure that that's included. Another thing about language is I really listen to the voices of autistic people. And so you will hear that I will be using identity first language. So autistic versus people with autism, as that is the preferred language for many autistic folks. So this first session is for parents and caregivers of children aged 10 and younger. The goal is just to have a general overview around some things to consider to increase your confidence in addressing topics related to healthy sexual development. This is going to be for generally geared towards children of age 12 and younger. Again, it's a quick overview, so we'll just be touching on some key points, and hopefully in the question and answer we can go in a little bit deeper. But some of the topics that I'll be talking about are independence versus interdependence. So I think those concepts are really important because I think we often talk about independence and a goal for independence. However, when we're thinking about all of us, including me, we're interdependent on other people as well. And I think we need to be teaching those skills of asking for help, relying on other people for support when needed, and normalize that in discussion with our kids. We'll be talking about privacy and what that means and how to begin teaching that at a fairly young age, related to privacy's boundaries, and some general discussions around hygiene and self-care. So these are the building blocks for teaching things about menstruation and healthy sexual development. It's really important that we think about considerations around communication. So you know your children, obviously better than I do, but we need to think about how we are delivering information. And so when we're thinking about this, I want you to think about the age of your children. So we may have parents of quite young ones here and up to the age of 10, and the way that they access information. So that's age and also developmental needs and stage. So, 5-year-olds, although maybe the same age, may have different developmental needs and be at different stages. Think about your own child and where they're at in terms of self-help skills, asking for things, self-care, and what they need at that stage. So obviously, a 4-year-old may need a lot more support around bathing and toileting versus a 10-year-old who may have more independence. We also need to think about communication needs and how your child communicates what they need, both expressively, so that's sort of in either speech or augmentative communication or pointing, however they express their needs, and receptively, so knowing how your child best takes in information. We know that a lot of autistic folks do best with having visuals alongside verbal supports. So to think about that and think about if your child does best with visuals or with language or with both. We also need to think about keeping things shorter. Less information is sometimes better. Less information and smaller chunks of information is sometimes better for people to understand and to process. Along with that goes practice and repetition. So when you're thinking about your children, thinking about all children, but especially autistic folks and people with developmental needs, may need more opportunity to practice, may need more repetition. So talking about something once often is not enough. We need to bring it up, in appropriate times more than once. Often teaching in context, so teachable moments. If you're at the store buying yourself menstrual products, to maybe normalize that and talk about that. Sensory needs. So that's going to be a big piece, more for session 2. But thinking about when people begin their periods, around what are some of the sensory issues that may come up, even sensory issues around wearing when people may consider wearing bras and tank tops, what that need is, the type of material, those sorts of things, and practice with those as well. And although not a sensory motor, not communication needs, we also need to think about what supports people may need for fine motor skills in terms of toileting and showering and brushing teeth. So making sure our expectations of our children are in line with their skills and their motor abilities. So independence. So I like to think about, first of all, yourself when you were younger, or even now, what you do independently. We often need help. All of us do. But we also need to think about what our children can do on their own or with minimal support. So it may be, depending on the age, it may be feeding themselves. It may be brushing their teeth, toileting. So thinking about where your own child is at in terms of things that we're encouraging them to do on their own. It's really important that we empower children to increase their opportunities for independence. And some of that may mean that we may need to shift our expectations. If a child is brushing their teeth a little bit on their own without support, that's fantastic. We want to make sure that we're giving those opportunities, that we're assuming competence. So in independence, we want to assume competence while also giving skills. We want to think about how in independence, we also want to think about how people are making their own choices. At a young age, children have the ability to make choices. They have the ability to make choices about lots of things. And you may not necessarily tie that to independence around puberty and self-care, but those early building blocks are going to give people a sense of competence. And we want to increase competence as much as possible. And so we also need to think about how children are making choices, how they are also saying no to things. So some people make choices around pointing. Some people are able to use speech. Some people use augmentative and alternative communication devices. Vocalization. So, you obviously know your children. You may know what different vocalizations mean in terms of an interest in things or a disinterest in things. Behaviors also show what people are choosing. So really think about how children are making choices and integrating those choices into everyday life. Some examples of choices, simple things are choosing a color of a toothbrush, outfit choices. So giving your children as much as possible and appropriate for the weather, giving children choices around colors, styles, what they want to wear. All of these are building blocks. Food preferences. So we know as much as possible, we'd like to give children some choice around food. We know sometimes sensory pieces get in the way around that, but when they can, to make some choices around that. Another example is, when to shower. So children need to bathe and shower, but we can give some more choices around that. And that increases independence. That increases the sense of competence. We can help them make choices around leisure activities to do. I do want to also acknowledge, however, that sometimes open-ended questions about what you want to do or what you want, especially for autistic folks, may be challenging. So definitely give choices. However, sometimes this open-ended question around even color of a toothbrush, for example. Sometimes that may be too much choice. Doesn't mean that somebody shouldn't be given the opportunity, but some of the examples around how to limit choices is you could give a few opportunities to choose different things. So to choose a color of a toothbrush, lay out a few options for outfits, in terms of, when to do chores around the house or when to shower, giving some choices around that. Would you like to shower in the morning? Would you like to shower this evening? So all of those increase confidence and give children a voice around their own life, and that's really important. But again, I'm a firm believer that we are not all independent people. We rely on others in areas that we may need support. I'm not the best at remembering to pay bills on time all the time and things like that. My husband's really good at that. So, he does that part. And I do other pieces that are more challenging for him. So I think we want to normalize and encourage interdependence as well. One of those big things is, does your child know how to ask for help? Is this encouraged? We ourselves want to model and reinforce asking for help, and even having our children help us with things. Saying, I've had a really busy day. Would you mind going to get me a glass of water? Adding opportunities. So we're modeling that and normalizing asking for help as being a positive and reinforced option for people. So some of the examples of asking for help, are asking for help with putting toothpaste on the toothbrush, and then, congratulate and thank them for asking you. Brushing the knots out of hair. I have two daughters myself, and hair brushing has always been a challenge in our household. And so giving people the independence to try them themselves, but also reinforcing, support around that. Examples depending the developmental needs of children, where they're at. Bathing your child or helping them with showering, obviously younger children, there's going to be much more support. We want to increase independence by giving children maybe a visual schedule of what to do in the shower, how to wash your hair, how to, when they're older, put on deodorant. So we want to give people, the children, the skills, often visually, about how to do that and the steps to take. But knowing when somebody needs help, providing help, but a minimal amount, especially in things of where privacy is concerned. The other thing that's really important around privacy and boundaries are, if you're wanting to help children with bathing, if it's needed to help them with that, also asking for permission, saying, is it okay if I help you? This is around teaching consent and boundaries and privacy. So respecting your children and modeling that as well. Talking about what you need support around. So being upfront and honest about some of the things that you may need some help around, and asking for that yourself and modeling that and normalizing that. We want to increase confidence, but also normalize asking for help and advocating. This is the early steps for advocacy as well. Privacy. When children are very young, obviously they have less privacy and less need for privacy. As they age, that increases. The need and the hope and the goal of privacy often increases. I think it's really important, even when children are quite young, that we are teaching or modeling what it means for privacy. So if your child's door is shut and you need to go in for something, even when they're really young, teaching knocking on doors before coming in. These are the building blocks, knocking and saying why you want to come in and waiting for permission to do so. If you need to go in, you tell them why. Also, normalizing shutting your own door sometimes. When you're in the bathroom or having a shower, young kids, regardless of developmental stage and need, often just barge into bathrooms. As I said, I have two young children. And so we need to teach that early on, shutting doors, teaching about knocking to come in. closing bathroom doors. All families are different, and so I don't want to generalize. Some families are more open around, doors being open when people are getting dressed. You may want to consider, as a child's getting older, for yourself and other people in the family, closing your doors when you're getting changed, teaching that it's okay for them to do that as well. And similar to what I said about showering, if you need to support your child in changing their clothes, asking, telling them why you're helping, and also recognizing that it's okay to have privacy when talking to others. So that sometimes mom and dad may need to talk in private, and the door may be closed, or parent and caregiver, or whoever's in the child's life, whoever the caregivers are, that privacy is okay and it's going to be respected. But also talking about when things can't be private. We also want to make sure, if children are ever told, somebody says you should keep a secret, don't tell your mom or dad, that those are actually times when that's okay not to keep things private, that's when you should be talking to parents. So we want to make sure that we're keeping kids safe around privacy and consent, but also recognize and giving them the language that if anybody's ever telling them to keep something secret from mom and dad, then that is actually the time that you should be talking to mom, dad, or parents, or whoever the caregiver is, that you should be talking to them. Alongside privacy is boundaries. So we need to normalize saying no to some requests. We want to know that children have the right to say no to some things. And that is something that you, as caregivers and parents, need to have discussions around, of what's okay for your child to say no to. This is important around consent. And when you say no to some things, that is going to be respected. But also to validate those feelings and experiences. So if somebody wants to do something and the answer from you is no, we also want to talk about and give language to those feelings. It's upsetting when I say you can't do that. I understand that. Let's work through these feelings. With boundaries, we also want to use simple and concrete language. We want to explain why there's a no. Do it in a way that is not too complicated. Sometimes when you want to do something, when you want to eat chocolate right before bed, I have to say no to that, because that impacts your health and your sleep. If you want to have a snack during the day, that may be something I say yes to, and you may have some choice around that. So teaching those, but also respecting your child's knows where and when you can. For example, some families, it's normalized and expected that a child hugs extended family. Some children, they're not comfortable with that. You need to think within your family what's okay and what's appropriate. So if your child is saying in any way that they don't want to, for example, give a hug to somebody, consider respecting that, because it will set up body autonomy in the future for them, and knowing that their body autonomy is going to be respected. And that's a really, really important building block to consent. And also teaching for yourself, for your children, if there's times when you don't feel like you want a hug, or you have other things to say, I'm right now, for me right now, mom just needs some space. I had a busy day and I just need some time to myself. So right now, maybe we cuddle on the couch later. So also teaching that other people have the right to say no to certain requests. And again, that's going and validating the feelings around it, talking about how that may feel, but being firm on that. Again, it sets up the conditions for informed consent, boundaries in the future. So we want to build the building blocks now to build upon later. Again, skills to teach and to praise, asking for help. So when a child is having trouble doing something or needs some support, we really want to reinforce that. That's about interdependence. That's about knowing that their voices are going to be heard. Making choices. So when somebody's able to make a choice that feels right for them, even if you disagree, if it's a choice that's safe and reasonable, we want to reinforce that. We want to reinforce that empowerment and that independence. somebody's ability to change their own clothes and washing hands, showering and bathing, knocking on closed doors. So all those things that I talked about earlier. We want to use visuals where appropriate. I was considering sharing a number of visuals, but I also think there is so much that you can find online, and even cutting out things from magazines. And everybody that's attending this, your own child is different. So finding visuals that are appropriate for your own child. So step by step, around bathing. So I'm going to share a great resource that you can get some ideas from. I like to share experiences and things from autistic people themselves, and this resource is fantastic. So give me a second to see if this technology works. Start screen share. There, share. I talk to myself sometimes while I'm processing. There we go. And I think this is probably sharing. So this is the Autism Friendly Periods Guide. It's actually a book. It's fantastic, and it's gotten a lot of really good reviews. It's a book by an autistic person themselves. And so the book's great, but the website as well has a whole number of great resources. So when you're looking at for visuals and ideas, definitely check this out. Consider the book as well. And yeah, so in terms of looking at visuals, I'm really suggesting that you look here. So I'm going to stop sharing that. There we go. And I'm going to go back here. I think I did that correctly. And then the final slide is just really know your comfort level as a parent in having these conversations. They don't have to be embarrassing or awkward, but sometimes they feel that way. But we need to normalize labeling body parts, saying words, vagina, uterus, breasts, talking about things and using appropriate terms. We know that is also helps to keep children safe. When children have the appropriate terms and can use the appropriate terms, they can talk about things with other people. And we're going to talk about that more, about changes in the bodies, more in session 2. But really I'm really encouraging you to reflect upon your own experiences of talking about these things as you were growing up. What was helpful for you, what wasn't, and to practice yourself, saying if it's something you're not comfortable with, practicing yourself of saying the correct body parts, of normalizing the conversation, and that's really, really going to help your children as well. So I want to thank you for attending this first session, and see some of you in session 2 as well. Thanks. Hi, everybody. I think I am in live mode now. Welcome to people who are here. The workshop you just saw was taped a little while ago. And so now I have the pleasure of coming online. And I think I have all the technology down to answer any questions people may have. So I'm going to bring up my chat box if I can find it. Give me a second here. I'm having a wee technical difficulty. Q&A box. 1 second. There we go. I think maybe I have found it. There we go. Okay, got it. So I'm just going to, I just lost it again. I'm just going to have a look at the questions as they're coming up. There we go. Okay. There. I think I got it now, everybody. Thanks for your patience. I'm going to go up to the order in which they're coming. Sorry, and bear with me. So this is the first time I've done these questions live. Oh, there we go. There we go. Oh, so somebody said, can you email me the handouts? They're there. Touching on the importance of repetition of visual resources. Do you have any suggestions for how to help an autistic child learn important tasks without the repetition causing them to lose confidence in themselves? So I find it's quite helpful to narrate also what you're doing. So I find narrating things out loud, so saying what you're doing is helpful. So look, mommy's if it's a mom or a dad, or if I was doing it, look, mom's brushing her teeth. So this is what I do when I brush my teeth. I wet my toothbrush, I take out the toothpaste, I put it on, and I brush my teeth. So I think the modeling for other people in the family is really, really important, so that you're showing it that you're doing it themselves, that other members of the family are doing those tasks as well. So you're modeling it. So you're not just pointing out for the child who needs some extra support, that we're all doing it, we're all modeling it, we're all using those tools. And of course, the other piece I think is really important is praising. So, praising when somebody's doing even a part of a task well. As I mentioned in the video, I have 2 children myself. One is younger and showers on her own, but doesn't wash her hair the best sometimes. And so I really praise when I'm seeing, like, your hair looks great today. You brushed it really well today. So praising the parts that people are doing really well. So positive reinforcement can be very, very helpful, and help people build confidence. So even if they're doing part of a task well, to make sure that you're pointing those things out. And again, narrating your own experiences of things that you're doing. Sorry. So the website is it's called The Girl. I don't have it in front of me. I think it's the Autistic Guide to Periods, I think is what it's called. Robin Sheward is the name. ROBYN SHEWARD, I believe. But I will also let you know that this workshop is going to be live on demand as of 24 hours from now. So you'll be able to get that as well. And I'm talking about this in periods and more. So the next session is going to be specifically around menstruation and periods. And so I'll be talking about that in much more detail next month. Somebody else also asked about that. Somebody put it there. Thank you. Oh, thank you. So somebody asked about when should male caregivers respect girls' privacy, like bathrooms and showers, etc. And that's a great question. That's going to be different for every family and every child. I think when a child themselves is beginning to express discomfort and wanting more privacy, then that 100%, even if you think that's early, 100%, that's when that should be respected. If a child seems uncomfortable, I think as girls are young people are beginning to approach puberty, that's definitely a time when maybe more privacy should be considered. But boys and girls alike, of course, people's developmental differences and need for support will change from person to person. And sometimes people do need to, male caregivers, male people do need to, and female do need to provide more one-on-one support because of people's needs. And I think when that's happening, you still can provide help around self-care with, as minimal invasion as possible, and, continuing to ask for permission or saying what you're helping with, and doing that in a way that's respectful. Just going to scroll down here. So wondering if anybody else has any questions. I know there was something that came up with a family recently around oh, sorry, I know some of you don't see these. I'm answering it like you guys can all see the chats. So the website, I realize you can't see what people are writing. I apologize. The website is autismfriendlyperiods.com. And there's also Robin Stewart has a website as well. So it's www.robin, ROBYN, Steward, STEWARD.com. So apologies that I forgot that you couldn't see everybody else's comments. Feel free to ask more questions. I do know some people have had questions around, if my child doesn't want to bathe or shower, how to handle that. And of course, showering and bathing is something that people need to do, especially as they're getting older. And that's one of the things that I think, we can't say no to. But we can include our children in ways that are meaningful for them. So asking, almost bringing out a calendar, asking what days your child wants to shower or bathe. So giving some choice around that. Giving choice around time of day, having a minimal requirement for like how many times in a week you'd like your child to be able to have a bath or a shower, so that you're including them as much as possible, but having some clear boundaries around that. We do know, and I know from talking to older teens and adults, that sometimes showering and bathing does have a lot of sensory challenges with it. And I've been privileged and thankfully that some of the people I work with have told me that as they got older, they realized when they were younger things that they didn't know, like some of the sensory experiences around showering. And, a lot of people have actually told me that they really don't like that experience between being wet and dry, and that toweling off. And so, some of supporting people around showering and bathing is going to be respecting their sensory differences and trying to find different ways to accommodate that, being creative. I know somebody that I was working with, we talked about just getting a terry cloth robe, so, as soon as they were done in their shower, putting that around and kind of, that supporting that feeling of being wet immediately after a shower. Some people have a very hard time with showers, with the sensory around water on their head. So some of those people have preferred baths for most of their even into teenagehood. So it's about looking at some of those ways to mitigate. Even some people talk to me about the smells, the scents of some of the bath products. So, if somebody seems really aversive to having a shower or bath, obviously that's needed, but trying to find ways to mitigate that, some of the sensory things that can be happening. So I'm just seeing, I think what I'm missing, hold on, is there another row of questions? There we go, hold on. Oh, there seems to be, somebody said it looked like I froze, so hopefully I'm moving again. I think I'm getting all the questions. Hold on, did another one come in? I'm sorry if I'm missing a question. I don't think I am. One second. Just scrolling through to make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, I did miss one. Sorry. So somebody's asking about how do you balance your child's need for privacy? It's making sure they don't have body odor, that they wash the shampoo out of their hair, etc. So people are, can be very resistant to reminders, especially at that age, who just want to normalize that that's common for most people, most 12-year-olds, and people moving into teenagehood. I think, almost sometimes having an app can be helpful, giving a child their own autonomy around some of their self-care that they do. It's an app that they can remind themselves about what they do. I think, in a non-shaming way, I think sometimes people don't realize that body odor can impact relationships with other people. And so, just doing that in a non-shaming way and just a factual information can be very, very helpful. I do really want to acknowledge what I'm seeing across the board, the changes of being online and back to school and, having a break for the holiday time. So routines are very, very important, and routines have been very, very difficult because of all the changes and the inconsistencies these days. And so I do think it is, trying to develop in the house, and it's happening. And again, I think it really is just, recognizing when your child is doing even parts of things well, and highlighting those and acknowledging. I think it's very helpful to acknowledge that this time has been hard for us, in that many people are having a hard time with routines, but that those things help us, especially for a 12-year-old. I think you can really highlight that these things, setting routines, daily tasks, same waking time, can be really helpful in making us feel better. And I'm talking to a lot of clients about that, about how those routines and those consistencies support wellness across the board. So somebody asked about, does a book cover period panties like Nick's? Yeah, it does. It covers all of those pieces. And I've had some clients use period underwear with have really enjoyed them. Maybe enjoyed's the wrong word, but have found them helpful. And have had good experiences. The only challenges for people who have heavier flows, and I'm going to talk about this in more detail next month, they don't always do the job, unfortunately. Let me just making sure I am seeing these. Oops, there we go. Yeah, I think I've answered most of those. And then let me just go on to the next page to make sure I'm not missing that. No, okay. And I think I keep freezing, so I apologize for that. I'm not sure why that's happening. Another question that sometimes comes up is, around, I mentioned it again, though, in the workshop. I think it's happening with my own children, with not being able to see extended family for a long period of time. Many grandparents, aunts, uncles, who are able to see family again and have been seeing family, really want hugs, want to be like hugging their grandchildren or their relatives. And for some for some kids, autistic or not, that's not something they're comfortable with, especially not being around people for very often. And so somebody asked me earlier today, how do you handle that? What's a good way to handle that? We have that experience in my own family. And, I think it's a really good educational opportunity for extended family to say, people show affection in lots of different ways. And we kind of normalize hugging as being as one of the ways to show affection for others. But, to educate around, some people find that really uncomfortable. And, my child finds that they're very uncomfortable. They show love and affection in different ways, through words, through actions, through helping out, and to use that opportunity to educate so that we're supporting wellness. Some people ask me as well, should we not help our child be more comfortable with that sort of affection from other people? And again, I think it's also important to reflect upon whose needs are being met in those moments. If you think that's something that your child wants to develop, that comfort level, then those are conversations to be had. If your child feels like that's not something they're comfortable with, then I think it's a good chance to educate other people around that, around how we can show others affection and love in lots of different ways, and to normalize all the different ways that can happen. I think I've answered most of them. 1 second. Yeah. So I really want to thank everybody. Unless anybody has any more questions, I don't want to miss any. I keep freezing. I'm not sure why. Thanks. Somebody gave some feedback that this was helpful. So I'm glad to hear that. So somebody said they're looking forward to session 2, as am I. So session 2 is going to be a lot more of the nitty gritty details around periods. And I think, let me bring up my phone. I believe it's on, February 17th, same time, same place. And I'll be coming live again to answer some questions. And then 3 and 4 are going to be geared towards, I'll be talking specifically to autistic young people. So hopefully your young people will join. And if not, like this one, it will be available for it'll be available to watch afterwards. And I believe this one's available in the next 24 hours. So thanks so much, everybody. Bye.